They tell us it's just imagination. But what if every world you picture is actually a memory, echoing from somewhere else in the universe? I'll let you be the judge. Welcome to the Origin frequency. Your frequency is currently aligned with Tales from the Origin,
where every frequency holds a story, and the universe has no limit. Infinite worlds, infinite timelines, infinite perspectives. 3 personal accounts of astral projection from parallel Earths.
I wasn't trying to leave my body. It just happened. Transmission origin, Earth 3302. Date of download, unknown. Okay, I've been going back and forth on whether to even write this down because every time I try to explain it out loud, I sound insane. But it happened. It's been happening. And I need to put it somewhere before I convince myself I made it all up. I'm 28. I work in logistics. I'm not spiritual. I don't meditate. I've never done psychedelics. I drink too much coffee and I watch too much YouTube before bed. And I fall asleep with my phone on my chest most nights. I'm telling you this so you understand. I was not looking for this. I didn't read about it first. I didn't try a technique. I was just lying in bed one Tuesday night trying to fall asleep, and something happened that I cannot explain. It started with this sound, like, you know when you're on a plane and the engines change pitch during descent? That low, rising hum. It was like that, except it was inside me. Inside my skull, inside my chest, everywhere. And it kept getting louder. And then my body locked up. I couldn't move. I'm not talking about being sleepy and heavy. I mean, I could not move a single muscle. My eyes were closed and I was trying to open them and nothing was happening. I was fully conscious, my mind was completely awake, but my body was just gone.
I panicked, obviously. My first thought was stroke. My second thought was that I was dying. My heart was going crazy, but I couldn't feel it beating in my chest. I could just feel this frantic energy, like my whole system was redlining. And then the vibrations got so intense that it felt like my bed was shaking, like there was an earthquake, except I knew there wasn't because I could hear my cat snoring on the other side of the room. And then I was out. I don't know how else to say it. I was above my bed. I was looking down at myself. I could see the back of my own head. I could see my phone still on my chest, the screen dark. I could see my cat, Miso, curled up on the armchair. The room was the same room. Same posters on the wall, same pile of laundry on the chair, same everything. But it was like someone had turned up the contrast on reality. Everything was sharper. The edges of things sort of glowed. Not like a movie glow, not dramatic. More like when you clean your glasses and suddenly everything is in focus and you realize how blurry it had been before. I was floating. I didn't have weight. I looked down at my hands. I had hands, sort of, but they were translucent, and they had this faint shimmer to them. And there was this cord coming out of my chest, silver, thin. It went from me down to my body on the bed, and it was pulsing very gently, like a heartbeat. It was actually kind of beautiful. I remember thinking, weirdly, that it looked like a strand of spider silk in sunlight. I lasted maybe 10 seconds. The moment I thought, what the hell is happening to me? Like the actual words formed in my head, I got sucked back in, hard, like someone yanked a rope. I was back in my body and my eyes flew open and I sat up so fast I knocked my phone onto the floor and Miso jumped off the chair and hissed at me. I sat there for probably 20 minutes just staring at the wall. My hands were shaking. My shirt was soaked with sweat. And my brain was doing this thing where it was trying to file what just happened into a category that made sense, and it couldn't find one. Dream? No, I was awake. I was fully, completely awake the entire time. Hallucination? I've never hallucinated anything in my life. Sleep paralysis? That was part of it, yeah, but sleep paralysis doesn't include floating above your own body and seeing the room from the ceiling. I Googled it. Of course I Googled it. At 3 a.m. sitting on my bedroom floor with my cat glaring at me. And I found it. Astral Projection. Out-of-body experience. The vibrations, the paralysis, the separation, the cord, all of it. Thousands of people describing the exact same sequence, the exact same thing, down to the detail about the room looking sharper, down to the cord. I want to tell you about the feeling, because the visuals are actually the least important part. When I was out, during those 10 seconds or whatever it was, I felt something that I have never felt in my entire waking life. I felt free. Not free like no responsibilities. Free like, imagine you've been wearing a heavy coat your entire life, every single day, and you've gotten so used to it that you forgot it was there. And then someone takes it off. And suddenly you realize how heavy it was, how much energy you were spending just carrying it, and without it, you feel like you could do anything. Go anywhere. That's what it felt like. Weightless in a way that isn't just physical. Like my consciousness had been compressed into this tight little space inside my skull for 28 years, and suddenly it wasn't. It happened again 4 nights later. Same sequence. Vibrations, paralysis, separation. This time I lasted longer. Maybe a minute, maybe 2. I moved through my apartment, not by walking. I'd think, I want to be in the kitchen, and I'd be in the kitchen. I saw my dishes in the sink. I saw the specific mug I'd left on the counter, the blue one with the chip on the handle. I saw the time on the microwave clock, 2:47. When I came back and checked, the clock said 2:49. So either I imagined the right time within a 2-minute window by coincidence, or I was actually seeing my kitchen from outside my body. I've done it maybe 15 times now. Not every time I try. Sometimes the vibrations come and I get excited and it collapses. Excitement kills it almost as fast as fear. The state requires this very specific emotional balance. Alert but calm, curious but not grasping. Like you're watching something interesting, but you don't care if it stays or goes. The second you care too much, you snap back. I've gone outside. I've been above my building. I've seen my neighborhood from the air. Okay, this is the part that gets me. It's not a perfect copy. The details are close, but not exact. Like, the houses are in the right places and the streets are right, but some of the colors are slightly off, and text is unreliable. Signs and license plates shift if you look too hard at them. It's like the environment is being generated in real time by something that has great spatial memory, but doesn't bother with fine print. But here's what I keep coming back to. The feeling. Every time I come back into my body, there's this moment, just a second or two, where I can feel both states simultaneously. The lightness and the heaviness. The freedom and the compression. And I'm not going to lie, it makes being in a body kind of hard for a minute. Not in a depressing way, more in a, oh, right, gravity kind of way, like stepping off a trampoline. It goes away. You drink some water. You pet your cat. You remember that you like coffee and hot showers and the way the air smells after rain and all the other stuff that requires a body to experience. And you go to sleep, and maybe you go out again, and maybe you don't. I haven't told anyone in my real life. I'm telling you, whoever you are, reading this, because I need someone to know that it's real. Not because I need validation, because if you've felt the vibrations, if you've been lying in bed and felt that hum start building and your body lock up and you fought your way out of it because you were terrified, I need you to know that you are on the threshold of something extraordinary, and the fear is the only thing standing between you and it. I'm not going to tell you it's safe. I don't know if it's safe. I'm not going to tell you I understand it. I don't. But the cord holds. I've been out 15 times and the cord has held every single time. And what's on the other side of that threshold? The lightness, the clarity, the feeling of being more yourself than you've ever been while awake. That's not something I'm willing to pretend didn't happen. It happened. It keeps happening. And honestly, I hope it never stops. I used binaural beats to leave my body, and I need to talk about what I saw. Transmission, origin, Earth-7190. Date of download, unknown. I want to preface this by saying I tried astral projection for the dumbest possible reason. My roommate told me about the CIA gateway tapes, the declassified ones, from the 80s, where the government literally investigated whether people could leave their bodies using sound frequencies. And I thought it sounded like a fun thing to try on a Saturday night instead of going out. That was 9 months ago. What I've experienced since then has fundamentally changed how I think about consciousness, death, and what I am. But let me start at the beginning. The gateway process. Real thing. Look it up. In 1983, the U.S. Army commissioned an analysis of techniques developed by a guy named Robert Monroe, a former radio broadcasting executive who started spontaneously leaving his body in the late 50s. Monroe spent decades studying it and eventually developed a method using binaural beats. You play one frequency in the left ear and a slightly different frequency in the right ear, and your brain generates a third frequency internally to reconcile the difference. That third frequency can be tuned to match specific brainwave states, theta for deep relaxation, delta for sleep, and certain specific combinations that seem to push consciousness into states that Monroe mapped and numbered. Focus 10, Focus 12, Focus 15, Focus 21. The CIA report concluded basically that it works. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what it says. The Army dude who wrote it clearly did not want it to work, and it worked anyway. So I downloaded the audio. Cheap headphones. Lay on my bed. Saturday night. My roommate was in the living room watching something. Normal evening. I pressed play. The first few sessions, nothing dramatic happened. I got very relaxed. Deeper than normal relaxation. Like my body was sinking into the mattress, getting heavier and heavier, while my mind stayed clear. Monroe calls this Focus 10, mind awake, body asleep. It's a real state. You can feel the boundary between the two. Your body is gone. You can't feel your arms or legs, but you're thinking clearly. It's like your brain is a computer that just closed all the background applications. Everything gets quiet and fast and sharp. I did this maybe 10 times over 2 weeks, just getting comfortable with Focus 10, getting used to the feeling of my body disappearing while my mind stayed on. It's weird at first, but you adjust. Like learning to float in water, you have to stop trying to stand. Then I pushed to Focus 12. Monroe calls it expanded awareness. I didn't know what that meant until I felt it. The best way I can describe it. In Focus 10, your awareness is a flashlight. Narrow beam, clear, pointed wherever you direct it. In Focus 12, someone turns on the overhead lights. You can still use the flashlight, but now you're also aware of the whole room. Your perceptual field just opens. The first time I hit Focus 12, I started getting impressions, not visions, not sounds. More like, you know when someone walks into a room and you can feel their mood before they say anything? It was like that, but for everything. I could feel the emotional weather of my apartment. My roommate was stressed. I could feel it, a tight, buzzy energy coming from the living room. I texted her afterward. You okay? She said she'd been arguing with her mom on the phone. I had no way of knowing that. My door was closed. I had headphones in, but I felt it. That freaked me out a little. Not in a bad way. In a, wait, is this actually real way? I started paying more attention. Focus 15 took me another month to reach consistently. Monroe calls it no time. He's not kidding. In Focus 15, the sense of time passing just stops. Or rather, it stops being linear. This is going to sound abstract, but I promise it's not. When you're in it, it's as concrete as anything you've ever experienced. Time doesn't disappear. It changes shape. Instead of being a line that you move along, it becomes a space that you're inside of. Past and future are still there, but they're not behind and ahead of you. They're around you. Like being in a room where every wall is a different moment of your life. The first time I reached Focus 15, I relived the day my grandfather died. Not as a memory, as the actual experience. I was there, in the hospital room. I could smell the antiseptic. I could feel the plastic chair under me. I was 19 again and holding his hand and feeling it go slack. Except this time, I could also feel him. Not his body, him, his awareness. And it wasn't sad. I mean, the 19-year-old version of me was devastated. But the version of me in Focus 15 could feel something that the 19-year-old couldn't. My grandfather was not afraid. He was ready. There was this quality of, I keep wanting to say homecoming, that was radiating from him as he went. Like he was putting down a suitcase he'd been carrying for a very long time. I cried for about an hour after that session. Not grief. Something else. Something that doesn't have a name. The feeling of learning that someone you loved was okay. Really okay, more okay than you'd ever known, at the moment you thought they were suffering most. And then came Focus 21, the bridge. I need to be real with you. Focus 21 scared me. Not during, after, because it was so beautiful that it made me question whether I wanted to come back. Here's what happened. I was lying on my bed, headphones in, moved through focus 10, 12, 15 the way I'd learned, like gears shifting, each one clicking into place. And at 15, I felt a pull, not physical, directional, like my awareness had a compass and it was pointing somewhere I hadn't been yet. I followed it. The shift was immediate. 1 second I was in the time-space of focus 15, and the next I was somewhere else entirely. Not my room, not any room. I was in an open space, vast, dimensionless, filled with a light that didn't have a source. The light wasn't coming from anywhere. It just was, like the space itself was luminous. The color, I don't know how to describe the color. It wasn't white. It wasn't gold. It was the color that white and gold are trying to be. Warm, alive. It had texture. It had weight. It felt like being inside of love. I know how that sounds. I'm telling you what I felt. I wasn't alone. There were other presences. I don't want to say beings because that implies bodies, and they didn't have bodies. They were consciousnesses. Distinct, individual, aware. I could feel them the way you feel people in a room with you, even when your eyes are closed. Some of them were doing things I couldn't understand, moving with purpose, interacting with each other and with the space in ways that I didn't have the framework to interpret. It was like walking into a lab at MIT when you're 5 years old. You can tell important stuff is happening, you just don't know what any of it means. One of them acknowledged me. I felt its attention shift toward me, not hostile, not intense, just noticing, like someone glancing up from their desk. And I received something that wasn't words and wasn't images, but was a fully formed understanding that showed up in my mind pre-assembled. You're just visiting. That's fine. I explored. I moved through the space, by wanting to move, the way it always works in these states. I found areas that had distinct qualities. One felt contemplative and ancient, like standing in an empty cathedral. One felt like a workshop, active, creative, purposeful. One felt like a garden, which sounds crazy because there were no plants, but the quality of the space was growth. New things becoming, potential turning into actuality. I could feel it happening. I don't know how long I was there. Time doesn't apply. Could have been 5 minutes, could have been 2 hours. At some point, I became aware of my body again. Distant, heavy, like remembering that you left your car running in a parking lot. And I realized I had a choice. Not a dramatic movie moment choice, a quiet one. I could stay here, in this space that felt more like home than any place I'd ever been on Earth. Or I could go back to my body, to my apartment, to my job, to my ordinary life. I thought about my mom. I thought about my roommate, stressed out in the living room. I thought about the book I was halfway through and the concert I had tickets for next month, and the way my neighborhood smells in the morning when someone at the bakery on the corner starts the ovens at 5 a.m. I went back. Coming back was gentle, a slow re-solidification. The bed under my back, the headphones on my ears, the weight of being a body in a world with gravity and time and Monday mornings. I lay there for a while. I wasn't sad to be back. I wasn't happy to be back. I was just aware of the contrast, like stepping from a warm room into cold air. Both are real. Both are valid. They're just very, very different. I've been back to Focus 21 3 times since then. Each visit is a little different in its specifics, but identical in its emotional quality. Vast, warm, alive, purposeful. Whatever that space is, and I genuinely don't know what it is, it doesn't feel random or empty. It feels like it's where something important is happening. I just don't fully understand what yet. Here's what I want to say to anyone listening. I started this because of a joke on a Saturday night. I did not expect any of it to be real. I expected to get relaxed, maybe fall asleep, and text my roommate, "Lol, nothing happened." Instead, I experienced states of consciousness that I didn't know were possible. I felt my dead grandfather's peace. I stood in a space made of living light and was gently told that I was welcome to visit. You don't need to be spiritual to do this. You don't need to believe anything. You just need headphones, patience, and the willingness to find out that the inside of your own mind is a lot bigger than you thought. The vibrations are the doorway, the fear is the lock, and curiosity is the key. I know what I experienced. I know it was real. And I know I'm going back. My grandmother used to leave her body every night. Now I understand why. Transmission. Origin, Earth 5581. Date of download, unknown. My grandmother used to say things that nobody in the family took seriously. She'd say she visited people in the night. She'd say she could see the neighborhood from above the roof. She'd talk about the silver line that kept her connected to herself while she traveled. We thought it was dementia. She was in her 80s. Her mind was going, or that's what we told ourselves. She'd say things like, "I checked on your cousin in Seattle last night. He's not sleeping well. His apartment is messy." And we'd laugh, and then someone would call my cousin, and he'd mentioned he'd been stressed, wasn't sleeping, had let his place go. We'd chalk it up to coincidence, or to the fact that grandmothers just know things. You know how it is. You explain it away because the alternative is too weird. She died 3 years ago, peacefully, in her sleep. Which is what everyone says because it sounds nice, but in her case it was actually true. The night nurse said she had been calm all evening, almost happy, which was unusual because she'd been in a lot of pain that week. She said my grandmother told her, around 10 o'clock, "I'm going to go out tonight. Don't worry if I don't come back." The nurse thought she meant she was ready to die. And maybe she did. But knowing what I know now, I think she meant something more specific than that. I started having sleep paralysis about 6 months after she died. If you've never experienced it, you wake up, or you think you wake up, and you can't move. Your body is completely locked. Your eyes might be open, you can see your room, but you cannot lift a finger. It feels like something is sitting on your chest. Your heart races. You try to scream and nothing comes out. It is, without exaggeration, one of the most terrifying things a human body can do to itself. It happened 3-4 times a week. I went to my doctor. She said it was stress, maybe anxiety, gave me some breathing exercises, told me to avoid screens before bed. Standard stuff. It didn't help. The episodes kept coming. And then one night, I remember the exact date, March 14th, because I'd been watching a late basketball game and fell asleep on the couch. The paralysis hit, and instead of fighting it, I was just too tired to care. I was exhausted. I'd been fighting these episodes for months, and I was worn down, and when the buzzing started and my body locked up, something in me just said, "Fine, whatever, do what you're going to do." I stopped fighting. And the second I did, the absolute second, the vibrations changed. They went from this scary, grinding thing to something almost pleasant, like a purring, like my whole body was vibrating at the frequency of a cat's purr. And then I felt myself lift. I sat up, except my body didn't sit up. I sat up out of my body. I was standing next to my couch looking down at myself, asleep, mouth open, the TV still on. And I thought, with total clarity, oh, this is what Grandma was talking about. The silver line was there, from my chest to my body, exactly like she described, thin and bright and pulsing softly like a heartbeat. I'm going to tell you about the first few experiences because I think the details matter for people who are going through sleep paralysis and don't know what it actually is. The room was my room, but slightly different. The light was wrong. Not dark, not bright, just ambient, coming from everywhere and nowhere. Colors were muted, but edges were hyper-sharp. It's like looking at the world through a filter that reduces saturation but increases resolution. My TV was on in both versions, the physical one and whatever this was, but the image on the Astral TV was blurry, shifting. I've since learned that screens and text don't render well in this state. Spatial stuff is mostly accurate. Fine details are unreliable. I walked through my apartment, by which I mean I thought about moving to the kitchen, and then I was in the kitchen. Movement is instantaneous. It's thought-based. You don't walk, you just arrive. My dishes were in the sink. Accurate. The window was open a crack. Accurate. The fridge was humming. I could hear it, but not with ears. More like I was aware of the sound as information rather than experiencing it acoustically. I went to the front door. I wanted to go outside. And here's the thing that surprised me. I didn't open the door. I went through it. There was a moment of resistance, like pushing through a thick curtain, and then I was in the hallway. And then I was outside. My neighborhood at 2 a.m, seen from 6 feet above the sidewalk, in this state. Quiet. Absolutely quiet. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of silence, if that makes sense. Like the silence was a thing, filling the space. The streetlights were there, but their light behaved differently. It didn't illuminate the ground the way it should have. It was just there, decorative almost. And the sky was different. No stars, not black. A deep, deep navy blue that seemed to go on forever, and it was not empty. I couldn't tell you what was in it, just that it was not empty. There was depth to it, layers, the way a deep lake has depth that you can feel even when you can't see the bottom. I stayed close to my building that first night. I didn't go far. The cord was always there, stretching behind me, and every few minutes I'd feel a gentle pull from it, like a reminder. I'm still here. You can come back whenever you want. It wasn't scary. It was reassuring, like a safety line when you're rock climbing. You don't want to need it, but you're glad it's there. I went back to my body by thinking about it. That's literally it. I thought, I want to go back, and I was pulled gently along the cord, and I sank into myself, and I opened my eyes, and the TV was showing some infomercial, and my mouth was dry, and my cat was on my legs. That was the first time. I've gone out maybe 40 times since. Here's what I've learned. Not from books, from direct personal experience. Sleep paralysis is the on-ramp. That thing that terrified me for months was literally the doorway. The vibrations are the engine turning over. The paralysis is the seatbelt clicking. And the fear? The fear is you slamming on the brakes at the worst possible moment. Once I understood that, once I learned to relax into it instead of fighting, the paralysis stopped being a medical issue and became a launch pad. I haven't had a single terrifying sleep paralysis episode since, because now when it starts, I know what it is. My body falling asleep while my mind stays awake. The exact state that every astral projection manual describes as the prerequisite. Your emotional state shapes the experience. This one is important. If I go out feeling anxious, the space gets dark and heavy and close. Not dangerous, just unpleasant. Like being in a dark room when you're in a bad mood versus a good mood. Same room, different experience. If I go out calm and curious, the space is open, bright, welcoming. I've learned to do a kind of emotional check-in before I separate. If I'm not in a good headspace, I let the vibrations pass and just go to sleep normally. There's no rule that says you have to go out every time the door opens. Other people are out there. I've seen them. Not often and not clearly. Most of them look dim and unfocused, like they're not fully conscious. Sleeping people, I think. Their astral bodies are out, but nobody's driving. Occasionally, I've seen someone who's sharp, present, clearly aware. We've acknowledged each other. It's weird. Not threatening, just unexpected. Like making eye contact with a stranger on a hiking trail that you thought was empty. I went looking for my grandmother once. I know that sounds naive, maybe desperate. But I wanted to understand what she had been doing all those years, and I thought maybe, I don't know what I thought, that she'd be out there somewhere, flying around the neighborhood, checking on people, doing whatever she did. I didn't find her. Not in the etheric, the near-physical plane where you see the duplicate of the real world. But I did go deeper one night, past the etheric, past the point where the physical world fades out, into a space that I don't have good words for, a transition zone. Dark, featureless, like floating in deep water at night. Disorienting. I almost turned back, but I thought of my grandmother, who did this every single night for decades without any training, without any fear, and I kept going. On the other side of the dark, there was light. I found myself in a place that felt enormous, open. No walls that I could see, just space and warmth and a quality of light that I've never seen anywhere in the physical world. It was alive, not metaphorically. The light itself was aware, present. I could feel it the way you feel the sun on your skin, except it wasn't heat. It was recognition, like being seen, like being known. I don't think I found my grandmother there, but I think I understood her. I think I understood why she went out every night, why she couldn't stop, why she'd sit at the breakfast table with this quiet smile that we all thought was just her being old and gentle. She wasn't confused. She wasn't losing her mind. She was going somewhere real, somewhere that made her feel seen and known and connected to something vast. And then she was coming back to her little apartment and her family who didn't believe her and her body that was failing. And she was carrying that knowledge inside her like a lit candle. She couldn't explain it to us. How could she? What words would you use? I'm struggling right now, and I've had 9 months to process this. She had decades of experiences that she had to compress into sentences like, "I checked on your cousin," because that was the only version we could hear. I think when she died, when she told the nurse, "I'm going to go out tonight," she knew exactly what she was doing. She was going out one more time, down the silver line, through the dark, and into the light. Except this time, she didn't come back. Not because something went wrong, because she was done. She'd lived her life, she'd loved her family, she'd made the trip 1,000 times, and she was ready to stay. I miss her. But I don't worry about her. That's the gift this whole experience has given me. I don't worry about where she is. I've been to the edge of it. I've felt the light. And whatever it is not cold, it is not empty, and it is not nothing. I still go out, most nights. I keep it simple. I stay in the etheric usually, floating around my neighborhood, enjoying the silence, the weightlessness, the feeling of being more awake than waking. Some nights, I push deeper and touch that light again, just for a moment, just to remind myself it's there. And then I come back. I drink water. I check on my cat. I go to work in the morning. The two lives, the day one and the night one, they fit together now. They didn't at first. At first, it felt like I was living in two different worlds, and neither one knew about the other. But over time, they've blended. The things I've experienced out there have made me more patient in here, more present, less afraid. Not of death specifically, but of everything. When you've stared at your own body from the outside, when you've felt consciousness existing without a brain, when you've touched a light that knows your name, the stuff that used to keep you up at night just doesn't hit the same way. My grandmother was right about all of it. The silver line, the traveling, the visiting, the neighborhood from above, all of it. And I wish I could go back to every conversation where I laughed it off, every time I exchanged a look with my mom like, "Grandma's losing it again," and say, "I'm sorry, you were right. You were right about everything." But I think she already knows that. I think she knew before I did. I think she's out there right now, somewhere in that warm light with that quiet smile, completely unsurprised that I finally figured it out.